remind all members of the council and staff in the gallery that these meetings are recorded and available on YouTube. We'd like to acknowledge that this land we meet on today is the traditional lands of the Kaurna people and that we respect their spiritual relationship with their country. We also acknowledge the Kaurna people as the custodians of the Adelaide region and that their cultural and heritage beliefs are still as important to living Kaurna people today. Now I read you the council pledge. We seek wisdom and understanding as we face the duties of our united task, praying for the peace and prosperity of our city. Thank you, members. Be seated. So you will notice a slight interruption to proceedings. Please don't be distracted. The cat is still on the camera, so Joe's going to duck under it.
A very dark place.
My apologies for anyone listening on YouTube later on. It's not very exciting. Thank you very much.
Let's leave that.
Well, okay, declaration by members of a conflict of interest. Do we have any declarations tonight? No, that being the case, on leave we have Neil, is that right? Yeah. And apologies, we have Neil. We have someone to confirm the minutes of the ordinary meeting at Council for Tuesday the 23rd of May.
So moved.
Councillor Lee, wish to speak to it?
Second.
By Councillor Barnett, wish to speak to it?
No.
Any further debate? All those in favour? Against that carry. Thank you. Can I acknowledge and thank the Deputy Mayor for presiding over the meeting, the May meeting. Thank you. The Mayor's update, which continues the joy because you've got a dual report there from the Deputy Mayor and myself. Any questions about anything in the report? In case somebody wishes to move it. Councillor Harris, wish to speak to it?
I've got to get back in.
Councillor Harris?
Oh,
I thought you were the mover.
no, thank you. I'm just moving it, yes.
I have a seconder. Councillor Lee, wish to speak to it? Any further debate? All those in favour? Again, speaking. And again, record my thanks for Deputy Mayor filling in while I was away. Lots of events and functions and things to go to. Oh, you loved every minute of it. Absolutely. Thank you. Verbal reports from council representatives on local government or community organisations. Are there any verbal reports? No? Okay, we'll move on. Petitions we have nil. Deputations we have 3. Let the members, we had 2 registrations come through nearly alongside each other, but we missed one from Glenn Hayland, but I have acknowledged that I will receive that even though it was pretty late in the piece, because it was foreshadowed and in line with John Painters, both talking about the same issue at 2A Richmond Avenue. So I'll have that deputation come, and as you'd be aware, we're always pretty generous with people who want to give us a deputation, so I thought you'd be okay with that. So the first one I want to hear from tonight is in your agenda papers, item 8.1. Peter Lind, if you could come forward, Peter, and take the seat here. And if you could stand when you're doing your presentation, and I think you have a visual presentation as well.
I do.
And for the purposes of the records, if you could state your name and address.
Peter Linden for Gloucester Street, Prospect.
Thank you. And your 5 minutes starts now.
Thank you. Well, I'd like to first slide up, please. First slide. Okay. Thank you and good evening, and thank you for accepting this deputation. So I'm representing the community members of the Prospect Arts Action Network, the people that support the gallery and the arts in this council. And we're here to offer some design thinking about the new gallery and the general presence of arts in the building. We're extraordinarily mindful that it's a one-in-a-generation opportunity. This is Australia Council research from 2019. So art galleries got about 11 million visitors that year. Our most popular spectator sport, or football, got about 10 million. So art is popular. And it makes common sense that our art gallery should therefore be right in the heart of the public spaces in the new building. With that in mind, our research, and there's been quite a lot of it, has settled on the idea of a gallery that for most of the time is 3-sided. As people walk through the new building to pay their rates or visit the library, they'll see a place that welcomes them and that says, come and have a look. It'll be lively, unexpected and stimulating. The airiness of the gallery will also give an increased sense of the space to the adjacent services area of the library and so on. The two will then complement each other, and the spaciousness thus achieved will come at very little or no cost. We know that flexibility is the key to much of modern life, and it's also going to be the way to make the most of what the gallery can offer. So movable panel units make the gallery adaptable to different kinds of exhibitions, and as you can see, they're easily movable by one person. Panels are perfect for our popular community exhibitions, which are always crowded events without crammed high and low. If necessary, a couple of those panels could be moved to make up a fourth wall and moved into place. Why would you bring back a wall? Occasionally we would, because audio and visual presentations and art are quite common these days and need to keep up with the times that way. And the sound isolation and absorbent acoustics you'd have for this also have other benefits, and that is that once you've got the acoustics right, the gallery space becomes much more useful. Public meetings, seminars, discussions, supporting all sorts of things that may or may not be, obviously, art. In our combing of the web, we've looking for forward-thinking ideas. One of our PAN people had a fabulous find, and it's called the Slot Gallery. It's a small, ever-changing display, and a kind of a cabinet, like a shop window almost, that will support a variety of art forms. We in the PAN often come across artists who've made good work but don't have enough for a full exhibition, and sadly we then have to say no, but that rubs against the grain, pretty seriously the grain of trying to encourage the arts. The community members of the PAN are so keen to follow this up that we're happy to organise this ourselves, changing of the exhibits. We're talking a street frontage, about 3 metres wide and quite shallow, and the displays will work in the daytime as well as at night, and will add significantly to the nightlife that we're keen to see encouraged, I think all of us here, in the vicinity of the new building. Okay, some more research from the Australia Council. 1 in 3 Australians are creating visual arts and crafts, and we want to support that 1 in 3, and as a council we used to do that. Prior to the development of the digital hub in Thomas Street, there was an area next to the gallery which was used by art groups and artists in residence. We now have the opportunity to reinvigorate that encouragement of the arts. So heading towards summary, the art spaces in the building so far, about 250 square metres, have been allocated. And we're suggesting the gallery could take a bit less than half, that the making space a bit less than half, the gallery storage, and the galleries do need some, about 50 square metres, and the slot gallery is tiny, maybe 3. As you probably know, the City of Prospect also has its own substantial arts collection, and one way or another its own support has been required. So we're thinking, let's get clever and kill 2 birds with 1 stone. During the fit-out, hanging infrastructure could be put out installed throughout the building, quite simply. Thank you. And storage of the art collection, therefore, would be partly solved, and council staff and visitors will be able to enjoy the art. So, bigger crowds in the AFL, a participation rate of 1 in 3, and a once-in-a-generation opportunity. I thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. There might be some questions. Are there any questions from the Legal Panel?
There's a self-address there.
Are there any questions from the Legal Panel?
Yes, having attended my first meeting as one of the council representatives of the group. And I'm framing my question. I'd just like to say thank you very much for the presentation, short, sharp, succinct. And apropos of that, my question is, will your presentation be available to go on Council's website under the Click project page?
I'm more than happy to do that, of course. Yeah, I'll just need to clear some copyright on some of the images in the first case, but they're mostly Creative Commons, so it should be fine.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the Legal Panel? Councillor.
Thank you. Thank you, Peter. I just want to confirm, you were saying 250 square metres which has been allocated for the gallery. You think that's enough to do everything you just talked about? The tiny slot, I think, is a really simple easy thing for us to do. I think it's a no-brainer. In terms of the rest of the space, it'll fit with what we're
Well, I haven't got the numbers right in my head at the moment, so but my memory is that the current gallery is about 100. And that's a really good size for a community gallery. Much bigger than that, and it starts to kind of take on too much, just too big to service. It's not right for a council area of our size. And you don't want a little pokey hole in the wall because no one pays any attention to it. So the short answer is yes, that we think that's a good size. A making space area often needs a wet area as well and things like that. So that kind of takes a bit more than you might otherwise imagine. And then a storeroom. So we think the size, and I'm sure you've all been there, is a good community size. Yeah.
And so just a follow-up question. You're talking about the hanging infrastructure that can be done when the building's built. I'm just curious, I'm not familiar with that. What does that actually involve? What actually is that?
Well, there are a variety of them, but art galleries are designed so that there might be a little recess at the top of a wall, and it's just a little tiny thin gap in the wall, and at any time you can rest a little thing that hooks on it, hangs down, and it's got an easily adjustable height so that you can hang artwork. So it becomes part of what happens with the chip rock and it goes in. Yeah.
So something we should think about now rather than later.
Absolutely. It'll be far cheaper to put in. Yeah.
Thank you. Any further questions? Councillor Debate.
Well, great presentation.
Thank you.
I was just really interested in the concept of being able to annex it, so you could actually separate it from the civic space. So if you wanted to have nighttime events, that kind of thing, would that be a desirable thing to have like a separate entrance?
Oh, I see. So that you're thinking of hours when the rest of the building is not open.
Yes.
Thank you.
Make that as on notice.
Yes, yes. Yeah. Thank you.
Any other questions from the? If not, thank you for your presentation, Mr. Linden. Great to hear from Pam where its thinking is at and the thought that was thrown down. I think you've arrived at a very helpful place, and I think Councillor Barnett's suggestion is a good one. We have a very open website on this project, so it'd be great if we could get that up as a suggestion. And the staff have taken off the note, so thank you very much. If you could resume your seat in the gallery, and if I could call upon the next deputy, Mr. John Painter, if you could come forward. And just before I do that, just let people from the gallery know that was all you came for tonight. You're more than welcome to depart at this point. I won't see any offence in that. We'll be here for some time, but you don't need to leave. Thanks very much for your interest. Mr. Painter, probably, yes, if you could stand for your presentation and for questions after, technically. Otherwise, let me know you need to sit down if you need, that's fine. The rules are required to state your name and address for records.
My name is John Painter. I live together with my wife at number 4 Richmond Avenue. 5 minutes. Since November 1975.
Excellent, thank you.
Tonight I want to talk about the irregularities of what we consider are irregularities in the development of number 2A Richmond Avenue. We quote from the City North Weekly dated the 7th of June. Planning Director stated, currently Council relied on resident feedback to trigger investigation into development compliance. We've been raising privacy concerns since March to almost no avail. The exception was a glazing problem which Mr. Scott McCluskey arranged to be fixed on our behalf. So thank you for that. We consider inadequate screening on east windows and no screening on the top balconies has greatly impacted on the privacy of adjacent properties. We draw your attention to the following DAP conditions relating to 2A Richmond Avenue from the meeting in May 2015. Section 4 is referrals. 4.1.2, third paragraph in part states, overlooking issues have been well avoided. We strongly disagree with that statement. Section 5, public notification, 5.5, east-facing windows and balconies would be screened to protect visual privacy of the adjoining residents. As previously mentioned, the balcony on the top floor is not screened. We emailed photos taken from that particular balcony to Mr McCluskey on the 10th of March. No reply was received. Follow-up phone call on the 20th of March. Received an assurance that matters were being followed up with the developer. Further email sent the 29th of March in regard to progress on this matter. No reply was received. I visited the planning office on the 10th of April, received an apology, and the following day an email saying that privacy concerns have been addressed and found to be unwarranted. As we did not agree, we took the matter up with Susan Giles as she was relieving while Mr McCluskey was absent on holiday. We asked whether any council staff had been in the building and checked overlooking of adjacent properties or viewed our photos. We had to send a further email after approximately 10 days as the original had not been answered. An apology for late response was received, and in it she stated that all privacy concerns had been addressed. She did not answer the questions put to her. We took the matter up with Nathan Cunningham, who supplied the following regarding overlooking, I quote Nathan here. In the urban corridor zone, the balance is differently weighted in relation to overlooking than what occurs in the traditional residential zone. This is because the rights of the apartment occupants have greater consideration, given that they may lack options for an alternate feeling of openness for the apartments, whatever that means. He went on to say that the looms adequately minimise views given the utilisation of the rooms involved. We feel that the use of the rooms involved is entirely irrelevant to the privacy issues. The views are not minimised, they're only very slightly altered. We'd like to bring the following to your attention. Urban Corridor Zone, Prospect Road, City of Prospect website in a Q&A type format. Question: would my privacy be affected? Answer: the proposed policy would ensure that direct overlooking to habitable room windows and private open space of other dwellings is minimised. Screening devices integrated into the building design would need to be used to minimise direct overlooking while ensuring minimal negative effect on residents or neighbours' amenity. As such, indirect or distant views to a nearby private open space may occur.
1 minute.
In our case, the views are neither indirect due to the lack of balcony screening or distant, as the closest neighbour's private area is approximately 8 to 10 metres from the balcony and less from the east windows. But we feel that we've been let down by the planning department, in particular by lack of response, which we consider discourteous and unprofessional. Also, we're disappointed that our residential zone rights are overridden and negated by those in the corridor zone. We feel that our concerns should be revisited with consideration to residents rather than developers. I thank you for the opportunity to speak. And I have one further thing. I extend an invitation to anybody who would care to come to our premises and have a look for themselves firsthand to see what we have to face. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Just hold there. Perhaps let your members have got any questions for you. Any questions? Yes, Councillor Barnett.
Yes, thank you, John, for your 5-minute presentation of what has gone on for about 50,000 times longer than that. But my question is, how do you think the situation you have experienced could be improved? Just very quickly, of course.
In regard to the process of which our crews have been met or the actual changes to the building?
Well, whatever you would like to respond.
I think I made a claim we were disappointed with the response we had. And I don't think, considering the probably large profits we made on the premises of 2A, that it would be too much for a developer to erect a screen on the east-facing aspect of the northern balcony. As we mentioned, the screening on the windows, there's gaps like that. I can see it, but they certainly can see out more. I don't know if the occupants are aware of what is supposed to be done on the premises. Who knows?
Thank you. Any further questions for the members? No, that being the case, thank you, Mr. Paynter, for your presentation. Thank you very much. If you resume your seat in the gallery, I'll now call Mr. Glenn Haley to come forward. Mr. Hanley, if you're at hand now, you can see the routine. So if you could let us know your name and address.
Glenn Halen, I live at 5 Richmond Avenue, Prospect.
Thank you, and your 5 minutes starts here.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to present this deputation. I'm going to read it because I'm not very comfortable with public speaking. I wish to bring to your attention the matter of the failure by the developer of the 4-storey apartment complex at 2 Richmond Avenue to fulfil the conditions of approval, and our council's planners' failures to compel them to meet the conditions. 2A Richmond Avenue is the first and only development in the transit policy living area for the Tiana Avenue to Milner Street section. It does not front Prospect Road but faces Prospect side street containing character homes. You will be aware of the failings by the developers in many other sites in Prospect. Of particular impact on Richmond Avenue's residents, among the many matters of failed approval conditions, are the adverse impacts caused by overlooking and the failure to complete the critical components of landscaping. The Urban Corridor Zone and Interface Policy Review Development Plan Amendment, which I fully support and intend to comment on, is a clear admission of the failure of the current policy and its implementation. The rubbery terms in which the policy was written has resulted in interpretations by our planners which are clearly at odds with the intent and detrimental to our suburbs residents. It seems that the outcome has been in favour of developers' interests at the expense of the existing residents. Because of the limited time that I have to speak, I will limit myself to the matters of overlooking and landscaping at 2A Richmond Avenue. Overlooking. The screens on the eastern windows on the 2nd and 3rd floors allow virtually unimpeded views of adjacent properties. While it has been asserted that the screens meet planning policy in relation to overlooking, I contend that this is a failure to correctly interpret policy. The interpretation obviously has a significant negative effect on the amenity enjoyed by the occupants of the neighbouring dwellings. Only last week, a Prospect councillor told me, a Prospect planner, beg your pardon, told me that the intent of the policy for the screening was to prevent overviewing of neighbouring backyards while allowing distant views, for example, in this case, the hills. Additionally, our planners last week communicated to us that they consider, and I quote, the rights of the apartment occupants have greater consideration than existing residents. You'll appreciate that this caused some considerable degree of outrage in our community. The Council's Transit Living Area Policy document reads, balconies to upper storeys will provide passive surveillance to public areas while ensuring adequate privacy. While the balconies in the 2nd and 3rd storeys provide total screening to the east, the 4th floor balconies have no screening and therefore allow unrestricted views to the neighbouring properties. These are clear failures and our planners should take action to remedy the unfortunate outcome. Landscaping. At the time of the DA assessment of the proposal and at the insistence of the highly regarded member David Cook, a detailed amended landscaping plan was submitted and approved. Condition 8 of the approval reads, the landscaping shall be planted in accordance with the approval plans prior to occupancy of the development. It is now almost 4 months since the first residents moved into the apartments and we are still a long way from adherence to the approval. The initial landscaping completely omitted several of the vital components of the plan and could best be described as a token effort. While the new plan has been submitted and is under consideration by our planners, it is still completely fails to provide for the 8 to 10 metre screening trees along the eastern boundary. These were proposed as providing ideal softening of the industrial appearance of the development when viewed from the east. I see no reason why our planners should not simply insist on the full and complete implementation of the original landscaping plan.
1 minute.
In summary, here we go. It is clear that the developer has failed to meet a significant number of conditions of the approval and that our planners have failed in accepting a lesser outcome at the significant cost to the residents. I ask that the councillors request our CEO to direct our planners to take the necessary action to see that all the conditions of approval are completed in full. In particular, that the necessary modifications of the building are completed to prevent overviewing. and that the original landscaping plans are fully implemented. I welcome any questions. Thank you again for the opportunity.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions from our elected members?
I'll ask the same question that I asked the previous deputy. So just practically briefly, in a nutshell, how do you think the situation you have experienced could be improved?
Well, I think that clearly there is no oversight on the constructions or the developments by the planners. It seems to me that nobody goes and checks on anything. The system whereby independent certifiers are used to provide the certificate of completion seems to me a complete failure, and I think that should be abandoned. I understand that that's not simply this council's prerogative to do that, but I think the council should attempt to have that changed so that the system returns to the point where the council follow up and look at buildings as they go along. I mean, I know that probably items such as fire and safety are adhered to, but there are 10 items in this construction which clearly haven't been completed and which anybody walk up can see as done. So if the independent assessors aren't doing that, then the system's failed and I think should be changed.
Thank you,
Mr. Hanlon. You mentioned two issues of particular concern: landscaping and overlooking the privacy.
Yep.
What are the others that you're most concerned about now?
Well, the front view, this was another item which was brought up by David Cook, and we have timber slatted frontage on it to match the timber slatted fronting at the top, and that hasn't been completed. There's just some what I would consider fairly ordinary steel slatting being placed there in this case. The landscaping at the front was, there was a planter box which was supposed to be there. That wasn't put in. And there were three miserable little lamandras, those little bits of grass that you see planted out front. So far as the other plantings which were concerned, again, I would consider them miserable. I'm a nurseryman by trade, and you can tell that they purchased the least possible and the smallest and cheapest plants that they could find right there. And as well as that, there was supposed to be screening of the hot water services and hot water services, air conditioning, yeah, at the back. That wasn't done. When I put that to our planners, they said, well, there's a gate there, so you can't see it when the gate's closed, so that's okay. Oh, gee, what a cop-out. The traffic and vehicular movements which were supposed to have been accounted for haven't been, because there's two cars permanently parked out the front in the no parking space, and that's been ignored. Now, admittedly, that's not a matter of planning, but that has been brought to the council's attention and nothing done. The setbacks, which were originally, I think, have been changed subsequently. Now, regrettably, the other matters I haven't included on my notes here. I've got a file that's a foot thick, but I tried to reduce it so I didn't have to carry it. But there are 3 or 4 other matters which have clearly been ignored.
Thank you. Any further questions from the elected members? Councillor DeBack.
One question and a comment. I'm just saying thank you very much for your persistence in this matter. It's been over 6 months of correspondence, and it's a shame to see that things have to come to this point. And I congratulate these residents for bringing this to our attention, because... Shortly question. Would you mind if we direct staff to present this information to the DAP? Because I think it's really important that we close that loop, because obviously it becomes an academic exercise if conditions at DAP are not being checked at the other end.
I'll be happy for that to happen, and I'll be happy to cooperate anyway with the DAP.
Thank you. Any further questions from elected members? Well, that being the case, thank you very much, Mr. Hayden, for your presentation. Thank you. Excellent, on time. Thank both of you. That concludes, well, sorry, you might want to wait for questions without notice. Maybe there's a question, but after that, there might not be any further discussion on this matter tonight. So, again, like the other members of the gallery, if you feel the need to get off home, It's more than welcome. If you want to stay here for the balance of the whole meeting, you're more welcome to do that too. Okay, we'll move on now. That's the deputies. 3 of them we've heard. Motions on notice. The next item on the agenda we have nil. Item 10, 10.1, questions with notice. We have 1 question with notice from Councillor Backer. If you'd like to have the opportunity to read that question out, Councillor.
Yes, I would like to do that. So the first question I posed was, would the administration be able to confirm that Metropolitan Fire Service has been consulted about the proposed changes to the development plan? And part B of the question was, is there adequate firefighting appliances, this is reworded from what I sent through, within the city of Prospect to fight a fire in the type of a multi-storey constructions? So basically what I was
sorry, you don't get an opportunity to debate questions on notice.
Okay.
They're pretty cut and dry. And furthermore, thank you for asking the question. And we're trying to improve how we deal with these matters, and so the staff have, because the question's been asked early enough, been able to provide the answer in the agenda papers for you, and that's gone out to the public, of course, as part of the agenda. So we'll take the answer as it is written. And in this section, there's not an opportunity to ask a question any further about that. So just ask members to note both the question and the answer as it's in the agenda papers. And we'll move on to item 11, which is questions without notice. Are there any questions without notice? Councillor Harris.
Yes, I just got 2, and I suppose I start my questions to both to you, Mayor, because you've just returned, and I was excited when you went away and you talked about Prospect Road and Alpha Road and those beautiful red Dorothy sort of Wonderland red bricks. I see now they've got a big black line right through them with the NWS that's going through the lot. And I spoke to someone and the actual bricks are gone, and we got a nice bit of bitumen. So that was a hell of a waste of money. Are you aware that there's a big black snake through your happy red bricks?
I am aware, but surely you're asking a question about is it going to be remedied? It's your question, Councillor.
Oh, yeah. Well, I thought you might have answered the first bit, because the second bit was, have you any intentions to ask the staff to see if it can be remedied?
I do.
Thank you. That's all I wanted to ask that way.
Well, I'd rather you'd ask the staff that in your question, because you've got the floor.
Right. Well, the second one. The second one, is the Mayor aware that streets like May Street, Alice Street, Emma Street and Brussels that run off of 3rd Avenue, and I've had this for a long time, and it does go to my trees, which we lost in May Street, but are you aware that 55 odd metres down May Street belongs to Prospect and very similar on the other street? Are you aware? Because apparently quite often the staff aren't aware, because they keep telling me it always belongs to Port Adelaide Enfield and it belongs to Prospect.
Well, to be truthful, I wasn't aware that it was 55 metres.
55.3.
Thank you. I certainly wasn't aware it was 55.3. I can imagine that would be the back fence line, because it's blocked for about 55.3 metres deep. Thank you. I'm sure the staff have been listening, but I will take liberties. You didn't ask the question, but I'll ask it on your behalf. What are we doing, staff, about making sure SA Water do remedy the rather poor effort they're making at repairing road surfaces? And can I add to that, they have cut up our pattern paving on Flora Terrace some months ago and has not been replaced. So can someone help us understand what we're doing about it?
Through the Chair, yes, we have been in constant conversations with SA Water in relation to them coming back and reinstating appropriately. I can further provide some information in the coming weeks just to see where that's at. We've certainly also been discussing with them the service work that's been happening on Prospect Road as well.
Okay, can I ask you to extend that and just inform us, what are our rights to force them to fix it properly, not just to whack in blatant problems?
My understanding is that they work under different sort of regulations or under different codes of practice. So I don't know the answer to that question in its entirety, but I'm happy again to come back to you with some further advice.
Thank you. Take it on notice and advice. Thank you for the questions, Councillor Harris. And Councillor Batten next.
Can I ask a question about the same topic? Because I wasn't satisfied with the answer.
With your question, with notice?
Yes.
The answer is yes, because I have no means to stop you. So, of course, you
Okay. And I will. So, look, I was disappointed with the response because they didn't answer yes or no. And so if it is a yes, when was the Metropolitan Fire Service consulted? Who and what date were they spoken to? And the second part of the question, I'd actually originally asked, is there multi-storey firefighting appliances within the city prospect, and is the answer yes or no?
My understanding, the answer to the first one is no, but they're a state agency, so if the state changes its policies, then the onus is on them. But specifically asked no, and I'll ask the director to answer why we wouldn't send it to them anyway, and whether they comment on DPOs. I don't know the answer to that. And the second part I've taken as a yes, but I'll clarify the yes and the no's.
Through the chair, I'll do my best. In relation to the first question, you're quite right. The answer is no. They're not a standard referral agency, so we haven't referred this matter to them, nor have I witnessed that at this council or others. They may not have the mechanism to respond to each council's DPA. It's not a standard practice. That being said, in the answer it does talk about what they may be involved with at a state level. In relation to question 2...
So that's a no.
Yes, as said. And in relation to question 2, the SAMFS did not provide details of exactly what they have, but they provided a response suggesting that they were confident that they could fight any fire that was to break out in the City of Prospect.
Thank you. And just from my knowledge, from the chair, taking liberties, when a call is made from a multi-unit residential facility, they always respond with 3 appliances. Prospect only has 1, so 2 others come. They will order the appliances depending on the address. So they'll say it's 4 stories high. No, don't send a car. And so the response, I have every confidence for what we've got would be perfectly adequate. If we're in the CBD, the question would take a whole different meaning because they're building buildings that are, 30, 40 stories high. It's a very different question. These are good questions and a lot of what's happened recently.
There's none 40 high.
Building them now.
Yeah, but that's not there yet.
Thank you, Councillor. I'll be sure to text before you got the mark. Deputy Mayor Crew.
Thank you. I just had a couple of questions related mainly to Richmond Avenue issues that we've just heard from deputies. The first one through the Mayor to the appropriate director. Have community safety officers attended Richmond Avenue over the past 3 months in relation to the issues of cars parking in those standing zones? This is an issue that I'm getting lots of feedback on, not in Richmond Avenue necessarily, in other areas. So I'm just probably a bit oversensitive to it at the moment. I'm just curious to know
specifically that address.
Specifically that address. Have we? Obviously, we've heard that staff have been advised as an issue. You haven't responded to that issue.
Thank you. Manager?
Yeah, through the chair. The director currently on leave has made me aware that there is some traffic congestion, traffic issues on Richmond Avenue. Not sure if it's specifically around 2A, but I understand that patrols taking some patrols. I'm not sure on the outcomes of that.
Yeah, thank you.
Could I ask that maybe taking on notice that you can let us know how many infringement notices have been given over a period of 3 months in Richmond Avenue? I suspect that it's probably around 2A. I don't think the rest of Richmond when you have so much of an issue.
So we can take on notice to provide us a memo on how many infringement notices over the last 3 months in Richmond Avenue and hopefully the address security. Yeah.
Can I maybe suggest 6 because it sounds like that's... When was property constructed? When was the completion of the property? Practical completion? No, Richard?
Really much.
Okay. just indulge me, can I maybe say 4 months, because they will pick up after the...
Oh, for 4 months?
4 months, yeah.
Thank you. 4 months.
Okay, second question, just relating to an email from staff around this issue of consideration, and I just want to clarify because I heard something I just want some clarification on. So the question is, do apartment occupants have greater consideration where multi-storey properties are constructed close to a traditional residential zone? So it picks up just the issue of whether there is additional rights for people living in multi-storey properties, particularly on that buffer zone.
Yeah, directly, can you clarify that, of course?
Yeah, I'll certainly try through the mayor. There's been a lot of back and forth on the emails over this, and exactly what was said may have been confused over time. What we're trying to point out is that the overlooking provisions in the urban corridor zone are not as strong as they are in a traditional residential zone. This is because those owners or potential owners of apartments will have some certain rights in that they may only have one window or two windows. So the policy is written differently in the urban corridor zone than it is in the residential zone. It's not about rights of one versus the other. It's in assessing in the urban corridor zone, there is a different weighting given to how it is assessed.
Could you clarify what is in the existing and what is in the proposed legislation now? Is there a difference in that treatment?
Through the chair, no. There's no change proposed to other provisions.
Yeah. Thank you. Deputy Mayor.
Could there be?
In the revised amended version about the consultation, directly?
Look, through the chair, the short answer is yes. It's the development plan is the council's document. It's a policy document. You guys are the policy setters. That can certainly come into consideration at the conclusion of the consultation. As you know, this is on interim effect, so it's in place as we speak. That doesn't mean it's final. So certainly.
Third question almost there. I'm just curious as to whether we've had any similar issues with properties, particularly along Prospect and Churchill Road, where we've got multi-storey properties butting up against residential zones. Have there been similar issues with either the overlooking or properties not being completed to the standard we would expect to be completed?
Through the chair, this, through my experience of urban corridor zone, has been one where there's been most issues pointed out, as has been sort of talked about in emails and a little bit through the deputies. Council staff act on complaints, of which there have been a number, and this is probably a list of around 10, 8 of which related to matters that aren't in accordance with approval, and those are the 8 that are being worked through roundabout numbers. But yeah, this has been probably the most significant pushback.
Okay, thank you.
And my final question, just again in relation to 2A Richmond. We heard before there was some concern about the setback, whether that's being built to the development plan. So can I ask that question, what it has been? And also, I know my memory's a little faded on this, but there was an issue also about the depth of the property, the construction into the ground. Were both of those issues
were they consistent with what was approved by the DAC?
In terms of the building outcome, both the setback and also the depth and therefore the height of the property?
Through the chair, I'd have to take the specifics of that on notice because neither of those two issues have ever been passed to me through any email that I've seen on the topic, so I'd have to confer with staff whether or not it had been put to their attention or whether or not they'd reviewed that at any stage in relation to levels or setback. Certainly when setback was raised this evening, that was the first time it had been raised.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Backer and then Councillor Lane.
Yeah, just a question on checking. I find it concerning that we're actually depending on residents ringing and complaining before we go out and check. Is it possible that part of our building policy review process we can actually ensure that things like landscaping are checked?
Through the chair, there's an intent to provide a draft policy to council in coming months in relation to this. Essentially the answer would be what service do we give up in order to provide that, or where are the additional resources to proactively enforce in that manner. But that will come back through a policy.
Thank you. Anything further, Councillor Black?
Considering we're writing a budget tonight, what would be the annual cost of running sufficient checking?
That might be a little premature.
Well,
I'd like to review what we've got and how it's being used personally.
okay. Well, I withdraw the question.
Councillor Black.
Yes, given what's happened in apartment building in London, UK, I have two questions. What steps is Prospect Council planning and building staff taking to ensure that external cladding on apartment buildings is safe and meets Australian standards? And following up on that, part two, how are independent inspections I can't read my own writing, sorry, inspections are monitored to ensure this compliance?
Yeah, the two questions, especially the second, Director, you answer them, but
Through the Chair, there is a Building Fire Safety Committee that operates with this council and it's done jointly with Town of Walkerville. I understand that in 2016 they undertook an audit of all multi-storey buildings that have been constructed in the city, particularly in the urban corridor, to check whether or not they were meeting Australian standards as represented in the Building Code of Australia. Through that audit, I found out this afternoon that no buildings in respect of multi-stories were found to have the same material as what was used in London. That being said, that material meets the building code for buildings of less than 4 stories in height. So that's worth pointing out. So that's not so much about the future, but it is certainly, I thought, a useful reflection on we do have the committee, and the committee has that responsibility, and council may wish to task them with an updated audit.
just following up on the Council's second question, the designers and the approved plans may specify material X. How do we know they're not substituting material Y? They might have a different fire resistance. Do we check that? And if we don't, can we?
Through the Chair, the role of the private certifier would be to check that, and the Building Fire Safety Committee do inspect a number of buildings. I'd have to check the percent, but it isn't all buildings. They're not required to. It's the role of the certifier to check its safety compliance and provide that sign-off, so they have it on site. It's inspection requirement, just part of the role with certificates of completion.
Okay, they've got good insurance, right? So, any further questions without notice? That being the case, thank you. Quite a few there on important topics. We'll now go to the protocol, looking at all the reports we have tonight. Just a reminder to the members of the gallery who came to the discussion on Richmond Avenue, we'll now move into the formal reports as on the agenda, which don't address Richmond Avenue. There may be something in general business that the council wants to bring up, but we won't get there for a couple of hours, so you're more than welcome to stay. But if they do, you'll see it in the minutes anyway. So if you want to move off now, that's perfectly okay. I understand that entirely. Thanks so much for the presentation. Just members, the reports I will run through, but I've just been advised just before the meeting by the CEO that there have been some withdrawal of items. They are the last 3 reports, 1910, 1911 and 1912. The acting CEO has withdrawn them to allow some more work to be undertaken and come back with a more precise kind of outcome in those 3 areas. So they will return to us soon, I hope. They are withdrawn from tonight's agenda. So therefore I ask, as I normally do, go through the protocol, who wishes to withdraw his reports. If they're not withdrawn, of course, we'll adopt them on block. And some of these we've discussed, obviously, in other places. 13.1, the minutes of the Audit Committee meeting on the 13th of June. Does anybody wish to withdraw that? No, it's not. 15.1, a project update on the Community Hub Library Innovation Centre. Right. The 15.2, the calling for expressions of interest. So Harris.
Yes.
The 18.1, the community feedback regarding the draft annual business plan. Anybody wish to withdraw that one?
19.1.
19.1, sorry, 19.1. Right, good report. 19.2, I will withdraw because we've got a slightly modified recommendation from 19.2. 19.3, does anybody wish to withdraw the CEO's statement of financial sustainability? No. 19.4, discretionary rate rebates. Does anybody wish to withdraw? Yes, please. This is the shortest list I've ever seen. Okay.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Thank you. The group. 19.5, does anybody wish to withdraw the fees and charges register? No. 19.6, the annual review of confidential items register. Does anybody wish to withdraw that? No. Again, nice and short, shortest I've ever seen it. It's great. 19.7, revoking of trees on private property policy. I love this. Anybody wish to withdraw our removal of red tape? No, brilliant. 19.8, Churchill Road, Elizabeth Street, Australian.
Yeah.
Christina the loudest. 19.9, vehicles parking on Council Burgess, the LGA submission we proposed. Anybody wish to withdraw? Okay. I ask, therefore, someone move on block items 13.1, 15.1, 19.1, 19.3, 19.5, 19.6, 19.7 and 19.9. Well, Mayor approved. And I have a seconder, Councillor Evans. All those in favour? Against? Is carried. Okay, so let's return to the reports that were withdrawn. Item 15.2 is the first, calling for expressions of interest on portion 126 Prospect. Councillor Harris, just a brief reason why you withdrew.
15.9.
Page 16.
I'm just going to raise a section 5.2 regards
Question?
ownership. Yeah.
Is it a question?
Yes.
I'll take your question.
Anyone authorised to right. I'll basically read it so you get to it. 5.2, page 17. At its meeting of 28th of March 2017, Council authorised the CEO to commence expression of interest process redevelopment site at 82 Johns Road, Comfortable, and 218 Main North Road, Prospect, in brackets, including consideration of the future use of the tram barn in particular, exploring various ownership or 200. I have a question and then make a thing about 218. Is that the milk depot side and 216 is the tram barn?
I'll take it as a brief question, but noting this item is not about that site. It's only about this site on Prospect Road. So, just want to make sure you understood that. I'm sure you did.
Yeah, I did. I just thought I'd take an opportunity to ask a question, so I'll move on to the next thing.
Okay. This item is only about this site. There's been no action yet on the other site, and just from the chair, we wanted to make sure that I ran as two separate processes so there was as little as confusion as we could get.
Right.
Okay, so thank you. So having now had the reason for withdrawal clarified, does anybody wish to move that in its current form? Councillor Evans, wish to speak to it?
Just very briefly, other than to say that we've got a very significant project. This is a very significant decision for council, I guess, and there's a whole range of things that could come back to us in terms of options. So we need to start the process. We need to know what options are going to come back to us, and I look forward to receiving the report when it comes back to council about next steps and what's been proposed to us in terms of this site and sale of a portion of this site as part of the overall planning of the project.
You have a second. Mayor Mark Rick, wish to speak to it?
Look, just to, I guess, reiterate what Councillor Evans said, I think the really smart bit about this process is we're saying we think we want ideas about the southern portion of the site, but if people have other ideas, we're really keen to hear them and be interested to hear what, I guess, creativity people can come up with in terms of how to use this site. So, look, I think it is an exciting process. It is a big decision because we are selling off some of our property and we don't take that decision lightly, but we have been talking about this for a long time. So I think we're at the point now where we're getting to the exciting bit, and hopefully there's some really creative thinkers out there who want to do something really interesting on this site, and we'll get excited and enthused about it before we move on to anything else. So I commend the motion. Hopefully it gets passed.
Okay, thank you. Any further? Councillor Back.
Yes, it is a big decision. And look, I'm really hopeful that what gets developed on the portion that is for sale is a worthy construction, given the conversations that have gone on earlier tonight. Just on page 19, part 5.12, it talks about a timely construction will be emphasised, and noting that we want to sort of encourage that it's not land banked. So how do we ensure we don't end up with another Le Cornu site in the heart of Prospect Road? And what sort of mechanisms can we use?
Yeah,
through the chair, there are a number of things that can be done in order to try and avoid a land banking style situation. Not least of which, putting it in a contract that if commencement doesn't occur before a certain date, the contract is void or the sale is reversed. That would be a relatively extreme measure, but certainly a very clear one. That exists as a possibility.
Thank you. Councillor, anything further?
Just in regards to that, is that something that specifically has to be moved at this council meeting by another elected member?
Through the chair, my advice would be not necessarily yet. I would suggest that we wait for the expressions of interest to come back. The council will then make a decision on what that next step is, whether to proceed with one or a number of those expressions of interest into a full-fledged proposal. And at that point, I think it would be timely to set some parameters around the council's expectations.
Thank you. Any further debate? Councillor Evans, you need to sum up? That concludes the debate. All those in favour? Against is carried. Thank you. That process as soon as practicable. The next item withdrawn was 19.2, the adoption of the annual business plan 2017-18 and rates declaration, recommendation on page 83 to 85. And I withdrew it because there was a revised recommendation, which is for you on the screen, hopefully, yes. And this reflects, you may have seen some email correspondence raised by Councillor Standen regarding the Hall infrastructure plan. And it's noted that the infrastructure plan hasn't caught up with our policy settings, where we've changed quite certain aspects. So it's best we don't bind ourselves with a report that we know will be updated in December. So that has been extracted from the revised recommendation from what we've been asked to adopt. So, Acting CEO, did I get that right? Is there anything you really wish to add? No. The balance of the recommendation is as printed in your papers. There are no other changes recommended, just that. Acting CEO.
Yeah. Through the chair, with that particular adjustment with the recommendation, we will then amend the annual business plan to exclude the whole section. That will include some renumbering of the letter section.
So if we remove
hang on, sorry. CEO, you need authorisation to do that from us. So otherwise you've got to print it as we adopt it. So can I suggest City of Prospect Annual Business Plan 2017 as amended to exclude Part D, and perhaps delete the brackets as amended to exclude. get really in blue in, and a comma where the other bracket is. Which will then, if we adopt that, give you permission to, closer to it, redo the plan. Okay. Now, sorry, that is the revised recommendation. Do you have any brief questions about the revised recommendation? I heard Councillor Evans.
Just a quick one, and I guess for the purposes of clarity, if we remove our asset management plan, what measures in the budget will govern spending on assets for the 6 months between now and when a new asset management plan is adopted in December?
Yep, through the chair, the amount that we have included in our budget and the long-term plan has been the amount that was in the asset management plan. So we have quarantined that sort of amount. We have planned that how much capital spend we need to have to ensure that we reach those sort of sustainability target. So the amount has already included in the long-term financial plan and the budget. So that wouldn't alter. The only thing that will alter from Part D is the treatment of the road. So certain roads may have been earmarked as construction or partial reconstruction at the moment. So they may change due to our methodology.
So just to clarify, in the new business plan, there is a section here that talks about the proposed capital spend to replace existing assets. And you'll see it's calculated as a linear replacement of existing assets over a cycle, and that's calculated out for this year and compared to the depreciation allowance for this year and by way of comparison.
Yes.
So what the staff are doing is saying, this is the amount we should be spending this year on assets, which then gives rise to the ratio we get on asset sustainability. So the amount is determined in multiple ways. The actual roads that it gets applied to, can someone just clarify that? Will those roads change before now in December? I guess the other part of the customer's question.
So through the chair, so the road that has been earmarked for 17-18 will not change, but the treatment of those roads will change. So if you look at annual business plan page, just very quickly, right in front of me, page 181. So we have mentioned quite a few.
What? Sorry.
181. So we have mentioned a few roads there, for instance, Clifton Street and Kintuanaville, Mole Street and Livingston Avenue. Those roads will not change, but the treatment of the roads, for instance, if this is construction, it may be partial construction or it may be a reseal. Because of the change in plan, we are in a transition period because we are updating our infrastructure asset management plan. Because of those changes, we are able to bring forward a particular street, such as Cannon Street, that is considered assessed as worse in condition. We were able to bring forward that particular street, and the reseal will be done within that. So we only have capacity in 16-17 and 17-18 to actually do this. By the time in December, we will actually have a fully fledged asset management plan.
So these streets are still on the schedule?
Correct. Correct.
That answers your question, Councillor.
It does. Maybe just supplementary question for complete clarity. So between the period now and December, what other than what we've got in our business plan, if we don't adopt the asset management plan, how is that spend going to be done? So we're going to renew assets differently to how we're proposing in the asset management plan. Is that right? And has that been, I guess, noted in what we've got?
So through the chair, in terms of spend, we will deliver the program of this, and the treatment of that will be different, and the amount will be different. So we will take into account of street that has brought forward, for instance, Cannon Street, and look at what is our total amount. And I think Alex would have his condition assessment to see what are the capacity we have to bring forward any assets that are in a worse condition only in that particular year. So we will make sure that we will spend the amount that we need to spend to renew our capital expenditure.
So I think in short, what's here is the worst case.
Correct.
If there are savings made, there may be more pulled forward. I would like to have greater clarity. But we don't at this point. I would hope the acting CEO and the manager would take on board the question and get back to us as soon as possible to clarify if there is any pull forward, what is likely to be done in addition to the listed. Deputy Mayor Group, question. Same question. Okay, thank you. So, any more questions of clarity around just the change? So, if there's not, I'll ask someone to move it, and of course we can have to vote. Okay, someone happy to move all the budget items? They go through item 1 right through to item 10. Councillor Evans, wish to speak to it?
Certainly. Just a couple of things. I have made a few notes. It's probably one of my favourite reports every year because it's the report where everything gets done. And it's very exciting. This is the culmination of many months' work, and I think just the first point to note is thank staff for their efforts in being involved in this process. It is a big document altogether. It's a document that receives lots of consultation, lots of feedback from our community. Indeed, some new measures in this budget as well, a new Village Heart Fund, which is exciting and exciting to see the support and the enthusiasm that exists around it as well, so we can see what that holds for the coming year. This budget is particularly, I guess, dear to my heart as well because it sees the completion of power line undergrounding along Prospect Road, a very long, a very expensive project, but one that's finally coming to its end. And indeed, questions this evening around the state of Prospect Road is very timely, given we're about to finish what has been quite a large project. Some exciting things in terms of customer service in this budget and how our community responds and interacts with council, which is also really exciting. So we've got a new portal coming online, we've got a new website coming online, theoretically lodging everything from CRM requests to interacting with us on any service matters that may need to be attended to should be far easier with the introduction of some of these new measures. And of course in the north and northwestern sections of our city where flooding is apparent and was particularly severely witnessed over the Christmas period, we've got some real measures and some real plans in this budget to look to deal with that, so very exciting. That as well, we've also got Broadview Oval coming online, which is another really large, exciting, visionary project, as is the Main North Road Master Plan. So lots happening across our city and the different parts of our city, and lots to be celebrated. But we do face some headwinds as well. So we've got CPI of 2%, as we know. We've got EPA measures that are going to start to affect us as we start patrolling, policing issues such as noise pollution coming up this financial year. And there's never an increase in complexity around delivering council services, and we can see that with the more detailed reports that are coming to us. We of course have a CLIP project coming up over the next couple of years, and looking at our long-term financial plan over 10 years, and it's not just 4 years, but looking at it over 10 years, we see the full effects of what that means, a $12 million investment in education, in library, in innovation and in learning in our city, which is all very exciting, but needs to be funded. So it's discipline now, it's discipline into the future and over the coming years, where we're particularly going to have some fairly strong headwinds as that project fully comes online. So a lot of good things in this budget, a lot to be proud of. Thanks again to the staff and to everyone, particularly our residents as well, who take the time to give some feedback on the annual business plan. It is a very important document, and it's one that I'm delighted to have seen so much feedback and so much interaction with. So with that, I'm delighted to move the report.
Thank you. Second. If you need group to speak to it.
Yeah, I will. Look, again, this is a really highlight, I guess, meeting of the year of this council every year to approve the budget. I just want to talk about two things, though. The first thing, the rate increase, because I think, again, we've managed to strike quite a modest rate increase in terms of rates increasing in the city of Prospect. Excuse me. The increase is around, I think, $48. I'm trying to find, I can't find it off the top of my head, but I'm sure $48 a year on average a rate increase, which I think is fantastic. And what that does is funds, I guess, a whole number of other projects, and Councillor Evans has just talked about some of those. And it's one of the tensions, I guess, people always want to do more, and in order to do more, we need to do that. And in order to get more money, there are two levers. One, we spend less, or the other one, we raise revenue through rates and taxes, and so it is a bit of a tension that we have. But I'm really excited that we've got. I think it's struck a really good budget. I'm really excited to see the NAPI program in again for the second year in a row. And as long as I have breath, I'll continue to advocate for that particular project. But I think it is good that as one of our environmental initiatives, it is in the budget, and it's been used well and promoted heavily in the magazine as well. I would also just, I guess, also echo thanks to staff. There has been a lot of work done in preparing the budget, and there's always a lot of work in terms of the numbers and everything that sits behind it. I did want to just raise, I just want to go back though to the issue of the asset management plan. So I just want to be really, really clear about this. So in December, Council will consider a revised asset management plan. What do we do from a, I guess, an informing perspective with the community about what's happening between now and December in terms of, we're approving this, the asset management plan isn't going to be in the business plan. So what are we going to do to, because there'll be people like Councillor Stan, no doubt, who have looked at the plan and have expectations about what's happening in their roads or their footpaths or whatever it might be. It won't be obvious to them after tonight. What are we going to do?
I will take that on notice because we haven't quite thought out about the consultation process at the moment. The spend for council will not change, but in terms of the roads it may and the treatment it may. So we are focusing primarily just to have a workshop with elected members as a starting point, and then we will come back to elected members how do we communicate with the community at that time. We haven't actually have a thorough plan as to exactly how are we going to deliver that. But that will certainly be in the 18-19 draft budget consultation.
So let me just add, because obviously you've been asked a lot of questions about this issue, that of all the asset classes we've got, I've not been advised that there are any other changes in footpaths, curbs and drainage, tree planting programs, parks and gardens, only in the surface treatment on the roads. And, well, I'm not sit corrected, but that's, I understand that's the only change. You go from hot mix everywhere to some places spray and seal or a reseal. So I expect that Acting CEO will be able to put out a memo pretty quickly clarifying that is the case, and the program can be listed in the memo as per the draft infrastructure plan. And I hope that very soon thereafter the team can clarify which roads and what particular treatments are anticipated. Because I agree, I'll want perfect clarity. As far as I can understand, the outcome is that more will be done, not less will be done, but I want that in black and white. There are some other anomalies. I know the footpath program is being reviewed because the replacement of asphalt you'll see in the asset plan finishes in 2019. Councils have been on this council a long time. We might have a party, a cake or a ribbon or something in the last bit of asphalt that gets pulled up, I don't know. But after that, you'll see in the asset management plan a whole pile of other reconstruction stuff. And I've got my radar up about what that is. I want to know more. So the 2020 program for footpaths, I don't think we really have spent enough time on it. So if you're talking to people about footpaths, just let them know from 2020 on, we need to be briefed about that. And up until 2019, I think that's pretty much as it is. So I've got a little long-winded answer. But on a summary, just the surface treatment on the roads is the thing that's changed. Sorry.
No, thank you. That provides a lot of clarity, and perhaps if I hadn't seconded the motion, I might have foreshadowed an amendment which looked at maybe excluding only that part of the asset management plan, if that was possible, out of the papers. But that might not be possible. So I'm just thinking out loud more than anything else. Look at Acting CEO's face suggests I move on. So I shall move on to just saying thank you again to staff, and particularly Chris and Jimmy, who are probably trawled over this for quite a bit. I'm excited. I think it's a good budget. I think it's a responsible budget, and I'm really happy to support it and certainly be voting for it tonight.
Any further debate? Councillor.
Sorry. Yes, I just wondered whether. So yes, I just echo the previous two speakers. I think you spoke very well and summed up very well. And on the as soon as we draw up any list, to do trees, footpaths, roads, all that, things can happen. We know they happen. I've been here long enough, 26 years, to know that things happen. You might, not that it'll happen this winter, I wonder, but you can have an extremely wet winter and suddenly all those little cracks and all the water seeps under, and you've got, a lot more things that happen, and lists have to change. But I think we're in a reasonable position that, generally speaking, it's as it is. But there may be some adjustments given. But we do have to have these by law, I understand. And there's legal things about footpaths. We do have to have footpath asset management plan, and we have to have money in the budget. And we've, over many, many years, we've kept up our end of the responsibility to make sure that all that infrastructure is kept in reasonably good order. So I think we should continue to be pleased with that aspect. I think as much as there are many perhaps people out in the community judging by, a lot of all the moaning, whinging letters that you see in the media, that people sort of, I don't think, whatever you do, you're most probably not going to please them all most of the time. All right, so but I think we do try and spread ourselves across so that we do things for our arts, we do things for our children, for our families, for our dog owners. So, without spreading ourselves too thin, but I think if you look through there, and I think this has been almost, a deliberate thing for members that we would like to see this approach. And also to meet our strategic plan, which has gone out previously for public comment and approval, and generally thinking everything's reasonably tickety-boo. So I think we're on a reasonable track. The other thing that quite often does not get a lot of play is that some years ago, the Local Government Association, I guess other associations around Australia, think that when people measure our basket of goods to measure our CPI, we don't have the same basket of goods throughout our local government. The works that we do, for example, we may have far more fuel, to be used, and other things like that. So I think that's a point to make, and if people are reporting on it in the wider media, it most probably be good to go onto the Local Government Association website and have a look at what exactly our basket of goods is and what our CPI might be. It measures differently to what the common, ordinary, accepted CPI is. So I commend everybody to vote for it. And that's it.
Thank you. Just briefly from the chair, I reiterate that this is a remarkable budget when you think about it. We've got CPI running at 2%. We've got cost shifting in terms of the EPA forcing their work onto us in terms of having noise patrols and other inspections which we haven't otherwise done ever. We've got a waste levy hike that we complained bitterly about last year. We have no control over it. That has another hike this year. Any other form of cost shifting you can think of. So we've absorbed all of that and CPI, and yet we are delivering in this budget a range of projects, from really small projects like the Chop Nappy project right through to, and I'm as excited as Councillor Evans, finally getting on with finishing the upgrading of Prospect Road. We are now the missing jigsaw puzzle piece, and the people north of Prospect Road have every right to be rewarded for their patience, and I'm just so excited we're getting on with it. It's one of the reasons I ran for council in 2003, and perhaps I haven't done a very good job in getting us there. It's taken so long. But to be able to do that, plus start some undergrounding on Hampstead Road, plus start the very gradual process on Main North Road, all in the same budget, as we are getting on with some serious flood mitigation work and starting the new facility here, all for 2.75%. And not just this year, but projecting outwards 2.75%. I think it's a remarkable achievement, and it's a credit to the staff, but it's a credit to all of the members that somehow we arm wrestle each other during this process and listen to the public, and we get that sort of result. I think it's very, very good. Of course, we have to make sure we deliver on it, and that's the theme of staff here. Then just a couple other points. The feedback received from the community, I thought was incredibly valuable. I like the way we keep getting better and better at it. The school feedback was, as other years, it's been some of the most interesting reading in the feedback, and I've heard some comments from people who witnessed it, how great it was. No one at the public meeting, there's a message in that. I'm not sure what we do, because it costs us lots of staff hours to put that meeting on. So I'm sure if we scaled it back, we'd get criticised by the two people that then turned up. So I don't know the answer, but I'm very happy that we provide a public meeting. I'd like more people to come. And the focus groups, I think, doing an afternoon one and an evening one, that seemed to work really well. So congratulations to staff for getting on the feedback. So, And just a final one, the Audit Committee did make a comment about the extent of information that we included in the adoption of the annual business plan. You might remember that little note. They said you might want to reconsider how much you lock everything up. So you do all your ratios. They would expect that there's a headline budget paper that's adopted and the asset infrastructure plan is an information attachment. It's not actually locked in. That all the other papers are information papers, which you can rely on, but they're not locked in, and the staff can then move around and that with a bit more flexibility and tell us where they're at with the budget variation process. So what's happened with this one is kind of along those lines, although not as planned, but I suspect we'll see a different format in future years. And the good thing is that'll be a shorter document, that'll be a bit easier for the community to digest too. I think it's a good time. I love the way our documents are structured, but it's probably a good time to have a look at it as well. So that concludes my speech. Now, Acting CEO has pointed out to me that in item 5 there's a reference to the infrastructure and asset management plan and rating strategies. So I'm being advised that we could just strike out the words infrastructure and asset management plan. Those 4 words. Doesn't appear anywhere else in there. Acting CEO. Okay, this is a triple cross check. They can't come out yet. I ask the mover and seconder if they're okay to remove those 2 items. There's now a varying motion. Councillor Evans is the mover. You're happy to incorporate that change. Thank you. Seconder, happy to incorporate. Receive leave of the meeting. Happy to incorporate that change. All in favour? Against, the change is incorporated. Thank you. And now becomes the motion. Thank you, CEO. And any further debate? Councillor Lowe.
I'd just like to support the highlights that have been raised already around the table regarding things like undergrounding power lines and stormwater treatments and those sorts of things like that. I'd also like to draw our attention to some of the other projects that we've got in the budget in the upcoming year, particularly those that relate to the Director of the Business and Innovations portfolio. I think, as we can see by some of the statistics in the focus group work, where 90% of people support the digital economy strategy, we're doing a good job, and we're doing a good job of making people aware and understand what it's all about. And as much as putting power lines underground and waterproofing our suburb is important for the future, these projects are super important for the future as well. They're the projects which are going to attract more business, more opportunities, more residents, more excitement, more activity to our council area. So there'll be more people who are here to enjoy the lack of power lines and the lack of flooding. So they all sort of work together. So there's another reason to carry out that work. From what I've seen recently, the work that we're doing in this space is definitely more towards the leading edge as opposed to trailing, and it's a good position to be in. I like the fact that we're prepared to take a degree of risk with the projects that we're taking on board if we stay in the safe lands and wait for everybody else to go down the path ahead of us. We'll miss the opportunity, miss the boat to retain our position as leaders. So I'd like to congratulate everybody for supporting some of those ideas and initiatives which are a little bit harder to see the outcome because they are not visible or invisible in the case of the power lines again, or the water, which is the invisible, won't be there anymore. But are equally as important to the future of our city. So I'd like to pass on my congratulations to the elected members of the staff for pushing hard for those projects to be included next year as well.
Thank you. Any further debate? Councillor Evans, if you wish to sum up. All okay, that concludes the debate. All those in favour? Against? This is carried unanimously. Which member I'm supposed to declare that after? Sorry. I did make a record that item 15.2 was unanimous. I counted all the numbers. Thank you. Next item with Dawn was item 19.4, discretionary rate rebates. Just a brief reason why you withdraw it. Page 243.
I had some questions.
Are they brief questions?
I'm happy to move and then ask questions on page 2.
As moving it and now talking to it.
Thank you. Just a couple of questions about the mandatory rebate process. So the first one, there are 2 groups. There's a third that chose not to request a rebate this year. So how long have we been giving the Gilpin Scouts and Anglicare SA rebates?
Manager of Finance, you have the durations on it?
Through you, I do not have them on me. In excess of my time with the council, quite a few years.
So very long. It's as long as I've been here, I think Councillor Green and probably beyond that.
So second question is 5.4 talks about a single year rebate. Let me go back. Council ratings policy provides council with the ability to provide a discretionary rate rebate for a period for up to 3 years. So I'm just trying to reconcile why we've been, not that I'm not supportive of them both getting a rebate, that'd be on the public record, but why we're doing that in the long term. And then the second question will be, why are we not providing rebates to other similar groups in the community? Is that because they don't know that they can ask, or is there some other process that needs to be looked at?
Through you, Mayor. The first question, should ask the second question first. They're available from our website, they're by application, and so anybody can apply at any time providing they meet the criteria that's on the form. We will present it to council on an application basically. In answer to your first question, providing a rebate for 1 year is more of a benefit administratively to us, for a member to actually come and ask every year to actually endorse that, rather than actually going for a 3-year period and setting a reminder for staff to actually come back at that point in time.
So the policy doesn't restrict the rebate done for years?
No.
So
Okay.
that just being a little shy, the audit committee and the external auditor have raised this issue as well?
Yeah, through you, Mayor, it was actually, the current rebate's actually lapsed 12 months ago, so they actually did receive this rebate 16-17 without council's permission, and that was why we're looking to close the loop and making sure this administratively doesn't happen again.
This was an unfamiliar process to me. It might have happened previous to last year, but I recall. Another question is just in relation to the rebate percentage. How's that determined?
Manager?
Through you, Mayor, similar businesses, similar organisations receiving mandatory rebates receive these rebates at that rate. So it was just really aligning them to those similar like businesses or like organisations that would receive through the mandatory process.
Thank you. Sorry, from the chair, there was some history to a few, and the council at the time, see nods, discussed who would get what, and there was some kind of benching of people at different levels because they compared to full not-for-profits or some other variety. So
it's our discretion as to the percentage. Have we done any modelling about who would be eligible for rebate?
Yeah, across the whole system. Manager?
Sure answer, no.
Would we be scared to do that?
Are you asking it?
It's not something we've contemplated. Happy to take that on notice and provide, to undertake that work and prepare it for a future workshop.
Could I just suggest, and of course I use it on the way away, but maybe for next budget process, it'd be good to have a conversation workshop about this process, about the discretionary rates, and maybe have a bit of a discussion about how we think that should be going forward, because some of us might have views about it one way or the other. It'd be good to have that debate prior to the approval of the business plan. I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. Do I have a second to having all those clarifications and questions? Councillor Harris, wish to speak to it?
No, thank you.
Further debate? Deputy Mayor, would you like to sum up your own speech?
I'll sum up Councillor Harris. No.
Included debate, all those in favour? Against, it is carried. Okay, next one withdrawn was 19.8 Churchill Road, Elizabeth Street, Devonport Terrace Drainage Works on page 277. Councillor Barnett, just a brief reason why.
Yes, over my page. Yes, it was just about, I had some concerns over the delays, the contamination and consultation or lack thereof with residents in that area.
So happy to get on the floor, as you wish to move it and get on the floor and ask those questions, or anyone?
Yes, I'm quite happy to move it because obviously it's very important to get it done. soon as possible. It doesn't. Oh, it's not really amuse, but I noticed that quite often on our agendas we have under item community involvement 3.1, no consultation has been undertaken with regard to the issues described in this report, and that led me to thinking, right, well, this report's now a public document, and so there are, I'd just like to voice my concerns about this. We know what's happened in other areas where water table contamination. I'm not quite sure if it's going to the extent of that. I don't want to sort of make an alarmist out of this, but I'm just wondering, whether it would behove us just to actually, once we're armed with the information that we are going to be getting back soon about the soil contamination, I'm just wondering if and when residents and those, it's only, I hope, small affected area are going to be notified. So just take that on board as appropriate staff. So unless they've got an answer, I don't expect it right now. But
well, I think Kevin, I have looked at this and read, as I said to the manager today, every bore log report is in our agenda. I'm sure you will get to. As far as I can tell, and the manager can tell me if I'm wrong, it seems that the first half a metre immediately under the asphalt is where the contaminated material is. It's filled, and it was probably obtained as cold road base and other things. It has a level of contamination which is classified as high, but only just, and I would say it's well above the water table. So when you look at the bore logs and pictures, you see those things in the trays. Once you get beyond that kind of blacky gravel, it's just pushing through the clays that we know here now look pretty good, in my view. So I take on board though your suggestion of letting the residents know what's going on. I think it's a great suggestion, and the manager can take note of that, because they'll be wanting to know what's happened.
Yes, and apropos of that, if we have the press here, I think we get off on the front foot, hopefully, on this.
Absolutely. Okay, anything further, Councillor Bunny?
No, thanks.
Put a second. Councillor, would you speak to it?
Yes. So apart from the concerns that Christina's raised regarding public consultation, which sounds like we're on top of, there's another significant concern here, and spending a lot of time down around that area over winter as I do, just hanging around. Stakeholders who have the licence for access to the club rooms and the facilities for the entire winter period from, I think, April to September, I was going to use the term up in arms, but are significantly concerned by the lack of genuine consultation that didn't take place with regards to decisions around the timing of this work. So looking back in through the report, there was funds made available, and then there was the process of selecting going through a tender process, and there seems to be time delays and lags and so on and so forth. And now we find ourselves in June and July with the work taking place across the coldest, wettest, darkest parts of the year. And the groups, the organisations who access the facility there have a lot of concerns about safe travel to and from cars for people dropping off their kids for training and for people attending games and practices and things like that. And I really can't for the life of me work out why this work wasn't scheduled at a time when there wasn't going to be such significant usage around that area. So what you've got is a situation currently where Davenport Terrace is closed off and Elizabeth Street is an absolute, it's like Hymie Street on a Saturday night. There's cars going everywhere. There's significant safety concerns about kids getting to and from cars. The residents must also be concerned about it as well. And I think at some point in time, maybe both roads will be shut off, so there'll be no parking adjacent to the oval at all. And whilst belatedly the staff have gone to some extent to try to address those concerns, they're still not satisfactory. And I don't know whether I'm asking a question here as to why the staff didn't have at least a minute's thought about when the right time to do this work would be, because it seems to me that if they had, they wouldn't have chosen the middle of the year, right in the middle of the busiest part of the season for those sporting organisations, when it's going to have the most impact on them.
Are you asking that question?
Well, I will ask that question, but I don't know whether I'm going to get an answer.
So we'll see. We'll test it.
Okay, so through the chair, can I ask the
Andrew, was
question?
there any thought given into the best time to do this project? And was there any recognition that that would be now?
Through the chair, yes, certainly was. In honesty, we did start the design process early on. There was a number of issues in terms of the design, conflict with sewer mains and other utilities. But in terms of answering your question, coming back to you or coming back to the group, key stakeholders a little earlier, probably should have, in hindsight. Didn't think that we'd run into so many issues in terms of the design component. We were hoping to finalise the design, talk about alignments, talk about a number of things then. That hasn't happened. In terms of the parking, in terms of the conflict, we have worked closely with yourselves and Ralph as well in terms of providing some other options. We've been talking to Right Price and we've reached an agreement to utilise their car parks further south from the precinct. We've also have discussions and have a commitment from Celebrations to provide an additional 7 parks as well as modifying some of the parking controls on Belford Avenue as well. So I guess that's how we've addressed some of the parking concerns that you've talked about.
There you go. There's an answer for you, Councillor. Anything further?
Doesn't answer my question, because the question was, it still sounds like regardless of delays and all those sorts of things, and I recognise that you've got to do the job properly, and when you come across issues, you've got to address those. But it sounds like you still plan to do the work in June or July, and now all this work around trying to scramble to ease the situation that we've currently got is through complete lack of foresight. When you had plenty of opportunity to think about it, it would have taken more than 5 minutes to think about it a little bit more deeply. So
that is a comment, not a question, but yes. Yeah.
That's all.
Okay. Thank you. Any further debate inside? Councillor Harris, sorry.
Yes, can I just ask 3 questions before either I'm not sure if I speak for or against. Question 1 is the 325 odd. That's already in the current budget that we're talking about. So I'm comfortable with that. I got the nod. Yeah. So the other 156 or on page 280. Yep, 280, there's 170. Is that a variation on the budget we just passed tonight to add something? Or is it on the last one again?
Yeah.
Through the chair, no, that is additional money that is required to dispose the contaminated soil. So it is for the old financial year, the current financial year. So in a few days' time, we'll have a new one. So that is with the current year. So we have looked at our budget. How can we fund this additional unplanned extra expenditure? So we look at our capital spend and our operating spend. So we looked at it. We think that there are savings in the capital project, not because of reducing of scope, but they are surplus after delivering the capital works. We can fund that from our existing surpluses. So what we're requesting is for the surpluses to be carried forward so that we can fund this additional. It's from the old year.
So, sorry, before you sit down, so not just the 356s we're going to carry over plus 100.
Correct, that's correct. So the other surplus money this year we need to carry over forward next year.
Okay, thank you. Look, I'll take on board what the Mayor said earlier, that maybe no one bothered to, not bothered, I'd take that back, no one sort of had an interest in looking at the core samples and all the notes. I might add, I did. I did, because I have a very big fear of poison in the ground, particularly on that part of the city, and I'll have it for a lot longer. So my last question that will then make my statement is, are we going to move all the high concentration and the low stuff? So we're going to get rid of the whole lot to the best of our ability, or just the high?
Through the chair, just the high contaminated soil.
Right. Well, then I actually oppose it, because I have a big concern of when we do the things, and a question you raised about young people coming in and all that stuff. We have contamination, and and it isn't deep, it isn't in the water, so I'm not actually 100% concerned about a water table unless something goes wrong. It's not down there. But my concern always comes in, today we all sit around here, we'll get rid of the high concentration and no doubt we'll do it properly because I know some of the companies involved. It'll be done okay and we're okay. Then over the years we slowly start to forget. You're not as old as me yet, but you will get as old as me, and you retire and move on, and then we have people coming and working later on. And I believe if we have that chance and we take something out, and it's poison, there's no question about it, it's poison, that even if it's a bit lower, we should be trying to get rid of the whole lot at the same time. Because otherwise either we have people working in it, whether they're sewer people, water people, just people digging up around the place, it can seep elsewhere and that sort of stuff. So I don't know how to get over it, but the only major reason, well, the only real reason I'm opposed to it is that I believe we should be removing the lot if we're going to have a go at it. So I am opposed to it unless someone can come up with an answer of what we can do with the low concentration stuff.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I might just take the opportunity to speak to the Chair so I can ask some questions. The report shows disposal of both high to a storage facility, but the other excavated material to site, backfilling with new material. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
So all material that we dig out is going on?
Yeah, that's correct, through the Chair. So the high level contamination, 340 odd tonnes.
Yeah.
There's only 2 facilities that can take it, so ARR and Integrated Waste Services as well. We need to do something with it. The EPA, there's certain guidelines. Once you get over a certain volume, 100 tonnes I think it is, we need to deal with it basically. The intermediate stuff will be disposed of, obviously not at that rate as a high contamination, with clean fuel coming back in terms of filling into the trench.
So my question is, Harris's concern is alleviated because it all goes off site. Your answer before.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Some goes to a special facility.
Yes.
And the other goes to a place that can accept low-level stuff.
That's correct,
right?
yes.
But we get back all clean stuff.
We do. So new stuff going back into the trench.
I use stuff as a non-technical term.
Yes.
Can I finish that last minute then?
Well, no, I'm sorry, because you finished speaking, but I used.
Well, I was misguided by the thing because I thought we were only taking the half.
Maybe sit down. I've used my opportunity to speak to ask the questions just to clarify. So yeah. Okay.
Used your time.
I've used my time. I'm pretty annoyed about this, finishing my speech, but there's not a lot we can do. I have asked the staff to be really wary about making sure we monitor how much of it's actually high level, how much of it's not, because this stuff can add up and get very costly very quickly. Anyway, it's worth keeping a very close eye on, is all I can say. And look, we will strike this issue not just down the western side. Every time we dig up an old road, we're often surprised by what's underneath it. And as much as we're surprised, the standards for contamination keep getting harder and harder to meet. So what was clean 10 years ago is not seen so much now. So this is a cost. So I consider as a contingency in future job planning. It's also, strangely, another reason why it's tempting not to reconstruct a road. Because if you dig all the base up, you might find some issues which are hard to deal with. Whereas if you reseal it, you haven't moved it, you haven't disturbed it either. So I'm sure all that information will come back to us over the next couple of months. Thank you. Any further speakers on this matter? Deputy Mayor Group and then Councillor Stan.
Thank you. I just want to, express my frustration in terms of this project that started 14 months ago, and we're kind of at this point, but that's been said on that. Without ruining the surprise too much, there's a $170,000 favourable capital budget in the fourth quarter review that's going to come to Council, which is convenient in that sense that it will obviously fund the additional costs. But can you just give me a sense of what the $170,000 is going to be made up of? Because while it's opportune to use that money, there's probably a million uses capital-wise that we could use that money for other than this. have we known about this issue. So,
So your question is,
So my question is, what's
Where's it
contributing
come
to the
favourable budget?
So,
sorry,
Okay. Do you have that?
I have to take that on notice. I don't have that figure in front of me.
Acting CEO does have it?
Yeah, okay.
Sorry.
Through the chair. So I think about 120 out of that is from the capital expenditure and the other 60 is from operating projects. They are all the savings when we went through the budget. They are all the savings from all the capital works. There are a few thousand here, 40,000 there from across a whole a number of lines. One of the biggest savings from memory, it was from our plant procurement. I think that is one of our biggest savings from our plant budget. So that's from the capital, but they are across the line. We can send an invoice to elected members where they are. But they are not the only savings. Those are the savings we have identified, but Budget Review 4 will be presented to you in August.
Okay, thank you.
When that comes, I'll be really interested to know whether those savings are just efficiency savings per project or whether they're actually, we can complete a piece of work savings or a mixture of both. And so I'll let that process run its course, but just flagging, I think I'm really, be really keen to see how that figure is constituted. The point about how much is highly contaminated soil, can I just get an assurance that that will come back to us, or not necessarily a council meeting, but certainly by a memo or some other means of transmission? That would be good, because sometimes these things just have a habit of kind of happening, and then we all have busy lives. But I think this is a really important one that most elected members, if not all, will be wanting to know exactly what it looks like at the end of it. So can I just check that we've got that assurance that will happen?
Through the chair, you're happy to provide some further information once we receive all of that.
Thank you, Manager.
and just as I guess, again, an interest point for me, the polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, the CEO can tell me exactly what they are.
Let me know.
Polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, what actually is it?
That's a
Manager,
simple question.
I can provide an answer.
Dr. Google.
Yes.
Cinders, ash, asphalt, bitumen,
Really common.
generally compounds that are aromatic. You can smell oily and bituminous, and that's why you'll see the report taken into a storage facility allows it to ventilate, and therefore the material itself might be deemed at a lower level of contamination once it's able to aerate. Don't ask me why they think that's okay, but that's what happens. So there's a certain amount of volatility in the contaminants, which is once it's allowed to go atmosphere, helps. Yeah, that makes sense. But they are not things that you would commonly associate with contamination like arsenic or cadmium or those sort of things. It would say that if they were there.
Yeah, I've just understood that.
You've done that. Then Councillor Stanley next, and then I saw Councillor at the back away there.
All right, answer my question.
I've just got a couple of points. I'd like to echo Councillor Larwood's concerns about the poor timing of these works and poor signage about where you can and can't go. As a parent who actually takes their child to training at that facility, I went to go down, turned off Churchill Road, went to go around the back, couldn't, and all of a sudden I was on Torrens Road and had to find my way back through Torrens Road and was 15 minutes late because I wouldn't have turned off had I known. But yeah, just a bit frustrating. I won't do it again, but it's very, very frustrating. Also, the question about the contaminants. Are any of the contaminants deemed to be consistent with brake dust or anything like that off the trains?
For the chair, no, that's not my understanding at all. It's heavy metals and the other materials aren't described.
Thank you.
Councillor Back, you. Thank you. Any further debate? Councillor Barnett.
No, I think there have been some extremely useful questions and some answers are still to come to us. and I think it was very interesting reading the report, you know, and finding all these big, long name, horrible things there, and thinking, oh, how wonderful it was if you were a council way back in the 1930s and you could just get rid of all your cinders and your dust and everything, just lay it down under a road and seal it, you know. Yeah, so I think we're, you know, all learning from hindsight here, and I'm sure there'll be a few processes perhaps tightened up for us after this. It's always good to learn from these matters, and you know, we're into continuous learning, so forward to us learning from this. And so yes, I just hope that we can perhaps get something out to residents once we have got, you know, some something really useful and non-alarmist perhaps, and to deal with the issues of consulting with the clubs. And it's very pleasing to learn about the other parking arrangements. So I just hope that the people that need to use those other parking arrangements will be informed. So thank you.
Thank you. That concludes the debate.
Sorry about that. I just couldn't find my seat for a minute.
Oh, here it is. Let's try and go with the act, Councillor. So that concludes the debate. All those in favour? All those against? It's carried unanimously. Thank you. Okay. That concludes debate on reports. And we can now move to the Council Priory. See the whole list of dates there. The next Eco Market coming up. A couple of footy games course, Prospect Local History Group presentation, Club 502, NAIDOC Week, another great event at the Thomas Street Centre and in the Town Hall. So there you go, put those in your diary please, and I hope to see you at some of those. General business, do we have any? I've just had one item given to them. And Councillor Lowe and Councillor Standard, I'll take this one first.
I've never done a general business before.
Great Britain, so the initials on the bottom here, GB.
Could be general business.
Oh.
Great Britain will do.
Is at the bottom. Call for a report on the safety improvements that Council can enforce, improve safety
and amenities, I think.
And convenience of residents, pedestrians and traffic around construction sites in the city. I'm happy to accept that as a motion under general business, calling for a report. I think it's fairly self-explanatory. Unless you wish to add any more, Councillor Harris, I presume you're the GB, the mover.
Yeah, I was just going to add a little bit more, but not much. It's the things that came up today about the fire one. These gentlemen that were speaking about things that happened in their property, that now in the hope that we're having multi-storey type things coming along, more so than single stories. There's various things for residents and pedestrians, covered walkways and these sort of things, and footpath sort of thing. Right at the moment, the two up the road on Prospect are pretty messy trying to walk through there. It's a battlefield to get through. So I'm happy to take part in that. So I'm calling for a report looking at the things that we can add or improve in the safety. And I've got photos to show some of it if necessary. So quite happy to go with it.
As a call out made behind the scenes, but pleased to see it as a formal report. Thank you. Do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Standard, who should speak to it?
Just to say I think it's a great idea.
Any further debate on that item? It concludes debate. All those in favour? Hence is carried unanimously. Councillor Larwood, do you have your hand up? Yeah. Fire away. What is a motion on the general business?
I'm not sure if this is a motion, but I'll talk and then you can stop me if I should stop.
Best you move a motion and then talk.
Well, all right.
Otherwise, it'd just be a conversation that you and I could have anywhere.
Well, I wanted to recognise and congratulate Councillor Greta, representative Prospect at the Australian Government Association General Assembly in Canberra recently. So
there was a motion, so let's get that up first.
There's a motion for that.
Yeah.
I never heard one.
Hang on. I don't mean to stop you mid-flight. Otherwise, we can't get the words up. Council congratulates Deputy Mayor Group on his representation of council at the recent
Australian Government Association General Assembly in Canberra in 2017.
Of council at the Australian Local Government Association.
Should be under on the council website under something.
Yeah, should well, I'm going.
Full stop. That's the motion?
Yeah, that's exactly as I thought it.
Thank you. And talking to your motion.
Yes. So I'd like to congratulate Deputy Mayor Green and in particular highlight the motion that he took to the General Assembly, which if we've forgotten, I'll just read it out. The National General Assembly called on the federal government to declare high-speed, high-capacity broadband to be a utility defined as an essential infrastructure service provided principally for public benefit, which enables economic growth and greater quality of life to achieve the goal of universal coverage. So the important thing here is that at the recent ICF summit in New York, that was ratified as a motion, and that actually happened after we had passed it at our local level and at state level, and indeed I think even at a national level. So we were a little bit fast off the starting blocks there, but they didn't mind that fact because they gave them so much support already. So congratulations for getting it on the table and getting it passed.
Not a single person spoke against. Seconded by Councillor Harris.
Oh, yes. Yes.
To speak to your seconding?
Yes, I do. Save me asking the question later. I'd like to congratulate him, and I heard things that he'd done while he was over there, and it was great. I didn't find out whether on our behalf he voted yes or no about the 26th of January. I was going to ask for a report on that one, which way he voted. So if he tells us, we can raise it another time. But I believe a couple of people I know that went, he done a great job for us, and somehow else I'll find out about the 26th of January.
Thank you. Any further debate? All those in favour? Yes, it's carried unanimously. And we had a further item, Councillor Stanton. Yep.
I do. I'll start with a question because I'm not sure whether I'll move the motion if the question is in the affirmative. The question is, do we have dog bags freely available at the front counter for anybody? Dog poo bags. If anybody wants to come in, do we have them freely available?
It's on the bin right outside the town hall.
No, I mean if you wanted to come in and get a roll.
Hand rolls out. No hand rolls out anyway. So that's enough.
Okay. I'd like to move a motion. This comes about. There's another council that got into a bit of strife by reducing the number of dog bag dispensers that they had, and people got upset about it. But the interesting part, if you looked in social media, that people kept saying, well, "Why don't you bring them from home? Bring them from home. Bring them from home," which is possibly the worst thing you could do for the environment. Whether you know or not, our dog bags are fully compostable, which means that they can be put into the general waste and they compost out probably at the same time as the waste. If you bring bags from home, you're putting plastics into the waste stream that shouldn't be there. So the most dangerous thing you can do is bring the bags from home. I've always... Sorry, no.
So can you just...
Okay, I'd like to move a motion that a roll of dog bags, a roll of compostable dog bags be available at the front counter to any resident who would like to have one, should they ask. I don't know how you put that into more eloquent language.
So, sorry, just let me clarify here. We're not talking about the acting roll of bag bags. That would be roll with two L's. Fix that up.
What is the role of compostable bags to contain poo?
Thank you for clarifying that for us. So Are you wishing that any resident that turns up at the counter can take away a whole roll, or are you, this seems to be saying that there's a roll available so they can come and grab a couple of bags?
I think a whole roll. I mean, the part of the bylaw requests, part of the bylaw
so that would mean that rolls of compostable dog bags be available.
Yep.
Take out 8. Okay, otherwise it's just one, the first resident gets it.
I can just say, if you want one, have one.
So that's where you're moving?
That's what I'm moving.
Okay, so you can speak further to it, you've got another couple minutes on.
Yeah, I mean, there's the bylaw states that you should leave your house, if you have a dog, you leave your house with bags on you. So if your dog makes waste on the way to the park or way to the station, that you have something to pick up. That can be tricky if you've only got these other types of bags. It's bad for the waste stream. It seems like we're going to give out dog bags and it's going to cost us extra money. It actually isn't. The idea is that the dog's not doing any more poos, whether they get the bags from here or they get them from the park. It's the exact same number of bags. It just makes it easier if people want a roll of bags, they can have a roll of bags.
Before you sit down, it's rare for us to move something that has immediate effect. General business is not a good place to do that because the community haven't had a chance to have a think about it and come along and say whether they like it or not like it. I would appreciate it if you said that a report be provided on the potential too, and that might give us lots of information which we can then think.
I can roll it back to a report if it's easier?
Well, I would make it easy for me to accept it under general business.
Okay, so a report
will be provided on the potential to
provide rolls of bags at council offices in addition to...
I'll leave it like that.
Yep.
Stop. You comfortable with that?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yep.
You wish to speak to any further?
No, I think that's pretty much my sentiment.
Do you have a seconder for that one?
No, thank you. I think he said enough about the rear end of the dogs. Move ahead and get a report. I'm about the only one that hasn't got a dog, I think.
Oh, yeah. I'll have you.
Further debate? Councillor back.
I'd like to move an amendment.
Proposed amendment?
Just in the wording probably provided on the potential to provide rolls, does that insinuate that they're free? Because I think the report should be open to the fact that they can be made available, a bit like the worm farms used to be.
They can be free. They're free now.
Well,
I think that everything has a cost implication.
Councillor Back has the floor.
So I'm just wondering if the word provide includes free and or for sale, in which case, or I should...
I would have thought the staff would give us those options.
Okay. Well, in that case,
we can answer that later on with a poor wrestle with a word.
It's available now.
Thank you.
Yeah, exactly right.
Further debate? That concludes. Councillor Stan, wish to sum up?
Yeah, I think the idea that they provide a report that gives the opportunity for bags to be bought is perfectly acceptable. As I said, the number of bags in total that would be used by the dogs at Prospect won't go up or down, so the cost of our bags, provision of our bags won't go up and down. The dogs won't do any more poos. They will just get their bags from a different place.
So they might do them somewhere else.
They'll just they'll just get their bags from a different place. They get them from the park or get them from our council office. It's just a matter of convenience for our residents and their pooches.
So already,
all those in favour? Against is carried unanimously.
it's already getting messy.
Is there any further general business? Any general business of urgent nature? Must be the case. Move on to confidential items, item 23.1, regarding Eastern Waste Management Authority membership. Someone moved part 1.
Later.
With no confidence. Thank you, member of the gallery. Anybody wish to move part 1? I'll take these in parts of the new structure. Councillor Barnett.
Struggling to get up, yes.
Wish to speak to us?
No.
No. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Evans wish to speak to it? No. Any further debate? All those in favour? Against? It's carried unanimously.